Bay, I think a half marathon is a good goal.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran the half marathon. When I crossed the finish line, there was no results. There were no screens. There was nothing. And
Right.
it was so anticlimactic. And I remember thinking, I literally turned around. I
Mm-hmm.
walked back over to the timing table, and I asked the gentleman sitting there. I said, "What are my results?"
Hey, listeners, welcome to Tech in 26.2 podcast, where I chat with the founders, the leaders in endurance tech industry who is supporting the athletes, the race organizers, or the community in general. If you have run a race recently, you probably have got something like this, a race babe, which is primarily your entry to the race and also uses the details to track your results for that specific race. Now, if I look at the back of the race babe, I do see something called a chip, which is attached, which is primarily used by the race timers or to track your results for the race. Now, have you ever wondered how that actually happens? There's a chip behind your babe, and you start the race, and there are some technology used throughout the race course which tracks your results to the T and also give you the results back when you finish the race. You're for a treat today because I am here talking to Kurt Hansen, who is the founder of Innovative Timing Systems, one of the top 4 companies in the world in race timing. Kurt goes deep into how he started Innovative Timing Systems, how he built the company to scale in a place where it has close to 700 offices across the world, and how he has grown this company to be one of the top 4 companies in the world. Plus, he's insight into how he sees the industry is evolving and also how the future lies ahead for the timing industry. Enjoy the story. And yes, if you're enjoying the stories in this podcast, the great way you can appreciate this podcast would be if you just leave a comment wherever you're listening the podcast, or subscribe to the YouTube channel, or share with your friends and family. Enjoy the story. Welcome, Kurt. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Yeah.
Thanks. So I will start something I read, and I was really fascinated with your introduction. So here it goes. The coolest guy you'll ever meet, the absolute best storyteller of our time, the world leader in patents and inventions in the race timing industry,
Right.
a pilot and classically trained musician,
Mm-hmm.
an amateur radio operator with his own satellite uplink and downlink center at his home,
Yeah,
a former Ironman athlete who retired after finishing Kona,
that's right.
an undeniable animal lover,
Mm,
and last but not the least, the CEO and founder of Innovative Timing Systems.
that's it.
What did I miss, Kurt?
Well, there's a few things you probably missed, but
Okay.
I love to garden. My wife
Okay.
and I are avid gardeners. We love that very much, and we've traveled extensively. I think I've been to maybe 140 countries around the world now,
Oh, wow.
and so we love to travel as well. So, but everything else I think is spot on.
Okay. That's great. Are you tracking to travel all the countries of the world?
No, not particularly.
Okay.
A lot of times, because of the number of offices we have around the world, I travel to visit them.
Okay.
So that accounts for a lot of it. However, having said that, as a good example, my wife and I have been to Hawaii, I think 11 times now. We
Oh,
love
okay.
Hawaii. We love to vacation there. We've been to Bora Bora in the South Pacific
Mm-hmm.
several times. So I think, probably 70, 80% of my travel is for business, and the rest is when I can sneak in a little time. We'll go see. Yeah.
Okay, I would guess because running this company as well as in supporting and wonderful running community probably takes a lot of or have a lot of travel on you in that case,
It
right?
does. Yeah, I go all over the world to attend races as well, not just to visit our offices, but to go to races. Yeah, I'm constantly traveling. Mm.
I see. I see. So let's start talking about the founding story of innovative timing systems.
Mm.
Like,
Okay.
I think if I see the data point, it started around 2006 timeframe, almost 18 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
how did it all started?
It was an accident. I say that to everybody I've interviewed with. It's an accident. And they laugh and say, "No, seriously." And no, it's an accident. A friend of mine, who was another Ironman athlete,
Mhm.
he had purchased a timing system from a new, I won't say their name, but a new startup. They're gone now, but they were a new startup in the industry. And he
Mhm.
called me and he said, I've spent my life savings. He had just graduated college. I was
Uh-huh.
much older. I'm 62 today. So obviously I was much older than him, but I knew his family really well. And he called me and he said, I bought this thing. I spent $40,000 and I
Mhm.
can't get it to work.
I see.
And he said, would you mind driving over? Now, driving over, he was 300 miles away. He was in Dayton, Ohio. But
Okay.
he said, would you mind driving over and taking a look at it and giving me your thoughts? And he said, your background is perfect. And I think, in a way it was. I'm a software engineer, I'm a hardware engineer.
Mhm.
I'm an RF engineer. I know a lot about RF. And he said, I think maybe you could troubleshoot this. So I drove over,
Mhm.
stayed with the family, and I told him within maybe a half hour, I said, it's never going to work. This product
Oh.
is absolutely never going to work. And at the time, there was only one system in the timing industry, and that was Championship.
Mhm.
They owned the market. They had about 99% market share. And so he said, I can't afford to buy Championship. So I bought this startup product. And
Mhm.
what am I going to do? It doesn't work. And I said, well, let me call the manufacturer myself. So I did. I called them
Mhm.
in Australia. That's where they were from. And I said, it doesn't appear to read more than one chip at a time.
Mhm.
How is somebody supposed to time races? They said,
Yeah.
well, what you need to do is use cones or flag rope, and you need to get everybody at the finish line to pare down to a single file when they cross the finish. And I said,
Right.
have you ever been to a race? That's not
Yeah.
going to happen.
Yeah.
And so we managed to get them finally to refund the money. And
Mhm.
my friend looked at me and said, I've committed to 60 races next year to do their timing. I can't afford to buy the championship system. I don't know what I'm going to do. And he said, why don't you invent a system for me? And at the time, I was running another company doing really well, a really good company. And I said, I just don't have the time. He said, well, why don't you go home and think about it? And if you're not up, he said something that really works with me well. He said, if you're not up for the challenge, I understand. Oh no, he had to
Yeah.
say that. So I drove
Yeah.
home. Within a week, I was on a plane and I flew literally out to the West Coast to meet with the RFID companies that were just emerging at that time. You had Impinj, you had Alien Technology, Intermec, Motorola, and they were really starting to get into the idea of RFID. So I
Mhm.
flew out on my own, met with them, and I selected Alien Technology and I said, I want to buy a development kit. Do you sell that? And they said, we do. So
Mhm.
I bought the development kit. I was back in St. Louis a few days later. It arrived, and I said, I'm gonna write something. I don't know what it's gonna be. I don't know anything about RFID. And I developed the system, the proto, I should say, the proto in about 3 months.
Uh-huh.
I called my buddy and I said, hey, I'm gonna come over to Dayton. Do you happen to have a race? And he said, as a matter of fact, I do.
Mhm.
And it's a 510K. It's not very big. Well, okay, great. Good place to go test the technology. So I show up. You should see the photos. I show up with homemade antennas made out of copper wire, um, and readers, RFID readers in plastic bags, and I mean it was horrible looking, but he said, "Yeah, I think this is going to be a great test." And I said, "How many people are coming today?" And he said, "About 1,800." And I had a heart attack. I said, what?
Yeah.
1,800? You told me it was a small race. He goes,
Small race.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's small. That's small. No, it's not small. And to
Yeah.
make matters worse, as you probably know, because you're a smart guy, it was supposed to rain and have thunderstorms. And I told my friend, I said, rain is the enemy of RFID. and it's very hard to read chips in rain. So, or tags, as they say. So,
Mm-hmm.
anyway, we ended up getting a 98.7% read rate. I
Oh,
was
wow.
astonished. I could not believe that it worked that well. And I told him, I said, I might be onto something here. Went
Mm-hmm.
back home. He called and said, I need a few other features in the system. So I kind of worked on it for another 3 or 4 months. And I would send him the software and say, give this a try. And one thing led to another, and suddenly he's timing races. He's doing triathlons, half marathons, 5 and 10Ks, and cycling events as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he said it's working really well. So one day I'm in my car. This is now mid 2007. I'm in my car going someplace, and I get a phone call, and it's from a lady who says, I'm with one of the major marathons in the US. I won't name them, but they're one of the major marathons. And she said, I ran in a race in Dayton, Ohio. And I had this disposable chip on the bib. Now, you have to keep in mind at the time, nobody had a disposable chip on the bib. We were the very first. Nobody had it.
Uh-huh.
Chronotrack hadn't come out with their system yet.
I
So
see.
we were ahead of them. And so she said, I've never seen such a thing. Um, and I want to find out, can we buy this for our marathon? And I
Mm-hmm.
said, how did you get my phone number? And she said, oh, Jeff, that was my friend. Jeff gave it to me.
I
And
see.
I said, did he tell you we were selling it? And she said, yeah. He said, you do it for us. And I
Yeah.
laughed and I said, well, I'm not in the business of that. I run another tech firm. And she said, well, how much do you want for each system? Now you have to keep in mind, this was before there were a lot of other technologies.
Yeah.
Championship at the time was charging around $50,000 for a system and $35 a chip. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, how about $30,000 a system and 40 cents for a chip? And she had a coronary. She said, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll take 5 of them. And then my next phrase was, look, I'm not going to build these on spec. You've got to be committed. So you're going to need to wire transfer the money to me. And she's like, fine. I called my wife at home and I said, do we have an account we can use for somebody to wire me $150,000? And she said, what did you just do? I said, I don't know. I think I've
Yeah.
launched a company. That's how it started. And what happened
Wow.
was we continued to get phone calls from people who had run in races in the
Mm-hmm.
Ohio area.
Mm-hmm.
And that led us to starting to build a business.
I
Um,
see.
Eventually, it got so big that in my house, we were literally in my house, and I have a big home, but I had 5 employees coming to my home every day. We had FedEx and UPS trucks showing up. And the neighbors came over and said, Kurt, we like you, but you got to move this into a building somewhere. You turn it into a manufacturing center. And we did. We moved right away. And I looked at my wife and I said, I think I've accidentally launched a company here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it started. My wife, by the way, is the co-founder, and she is also our chief financial officer
Oh,
of
great.
the company. And so she's heavily involved in our business as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember she looked at me and she said, okay, we're never going to sell more than 25 systems, right? And I said, yeah, never more than that. She said, because I don't really want to work this hard. At the end of that year, we had 75 customers around the world.
Oh,
And
wow.
and I said, I don't know how it happened. And then the next year it grew again and again, and it just kept growing.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't start advertising for this company until probably 8 or 9 years ago, because in the beginning it was just all word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
And so it was an accidental business. That's what we like to say around here. Now it's a major concern now. It's not an accident anymore, and we run it
That
like a major corporation.
that is so true. Now, the system called the Jaguar system, or the chips are also called the timing Jaguar. I think there is a story behind why did you name it Jaguar?
The reason is because my wife and I have been heavily involved since we've been married in the rescue of animals.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, we love the big cats, the carnivores.
Mm-hmm.
And we got involved with an organization out of Keensburg, Colorado, just outside Denver, called the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the largest sanctuary in the world
Mm-hmm.
for carnivores. They have over 10,700 acres of property.
Mm-hmm.
And they go all over the world rescuing big cats, and we love cats. And so we sponsored the rescue. My wife and I sponsored the rescue and paid for the rescue of to Jaguars, Negrita, and I just went blank on the other name. It'll come to me, but Sophia. Anyway, we sponsored the rescue, and then we got to go out to Colorado, and we got to be with them. Now these are large cats, so with them means we're behind a fence, but it's got large holes in it, and we're petting the animals under supervision of the gentleman who runs the place. We're being very careful, and we fell in love. And I said to my wife, "It seems like we ought to have cat names in all of our products," and so we do. So we've had cheetah, we've had Jaguar, we've had leopard, we have tomcat,
Okay.
and so we've named all of our products after cats. And today we sponsor the rescue of wild animals from all over the world. It's a big part of our company. We give back a fair amount of money to rescue animals in great need all over the world. So
Wow.
that's why cats.
That's great. That's why I was wondering why it is called Jaguar, and then looks like there is definitely a story behind how did you name all the
Well,
products of Innovative
to be fair,
Systems
there's
that way.
there's
Yeah.
one other story there which is short, and that is if you think about a jaguar, it's sleek, it's very fast,
Uh-huh.
it hides well in the forest, but it's in a phenomenal hunter.
Uh-huh.
And when I named the timing system, I said, well, we're kind of sleek and we're fast, and you don't really know we're there at the race, but we're reading you, we're keeping an eye on you. So I just
Right.
thought it kind of was funny that it tied in. So that's why we named it that.
It's connected the dots.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
connected the dots.
Oh, great. Um, we runners, when you run, you get the beef and you get some chips there, or sometimes, chips can be tied to your shoes on different ways. And you start running, you finish the race, and then you get the results like, hey, I did this and that. But there's a lot goes in, like when the starting the race or setting up the race to finishing it up, because you are heavily involved in the innovation, and I see that you have 25 patents and counting as
Yeah,
well.
it's
And
actually, by the way, it's actually about 32 right now.
32. Oh, okay. So I have the whole data then.
That's all
Um,
right.
Congratulations. So I was like, if you want to give a glimpse on like the runners, I want to see that, runners feel that like it's a lot of magic to happen for everything goes perfect and get the results and be proud of your accomplishments. Like if you want to just paint a picture for runners, like how does these things come together and work like, on a very high level?
Great question. I've not had that question asked of me before, by the way. So
Okay.
that's a good one. It's interesting. I had been very, very heavy at one time. Before I started this company, I weighed about 350 pounds. And my doctors had told me, if you don't lose the weight, you're probably going to die because you're type A, you work hard, and the weight is not good. And so I said, all right, well, how about if I drop 125 pounds? And the doctor said, well, it's not that easy, but good luck. I started walking, and next thing I knew, I was jogging. This was in about 2005. And I made the decision that I would sign up for a half marathon in late 2006.
Okay.
And a lot of people thought I was crazy. A lot of friends said, why don't you start small, like a 1 mile walk? And I said, no, I'm going to set the bar high. I'm type A. I think a half marathon is a good goal. So I ran the half marathon. When I crossed the finish line, there was no results. There were no screens. There was nothing. And
Right.
it was so anticlimactic. And I remember thinking, I literally turned around. I
Hmm.
walked back over to the timing table, and I asked the gentleman sitting there. I said, "What are my results?" And the reason that's important is I was a new runner. I wasn't wearing a watch.
Yeah.
Garmin didn't have the wonderful watches they have today,
Yeah.
and so I had no idea what my time was. And he said, and this was a Saturday, and he said, "Well, I have no idea, but if you look on our website on Monday or Tuesday, it should be there." And I remember thinking, my God, I trained for almost 2 years for this event. It's a big deal to me. I had, by the way, lost over 100 pounds at that point.
Oh, wow.
And yeah,
Awesome.
and I thought this ought to be a better experience for the athlete. It really bothers me that
Hmm.
it's sort of nonchalant, and the answer is, well, just check the website in a few days. And that stuck with me. And when I started this company, I said, every athlete deserves to feel like they've done the Olympics. Every
Hmm.
athlete. including people who even just walk. They're trying to lose weight. So I've got to change this industry. And when I started the timing sort of business accidentally, I was at races where I thought, why aren't there scrolling results screens, and why isn't there an update on a phone that lets you know, hey, congratulations, you just finished? I saw all of these things that nobody was innovating. There was absolutely no innovation at that time in the industry. Even
I
at
see.
an Ironman, you finished an Ironman, and they did have one screen that was up that would show the results. But
Mm-hmm.
even there were no kiosks. There was no phone integration. There was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I did some Ironmans, and I thought, can it be better than this? And so that really stuck with me. And I think it's why we're so successful, because maybe it was anger, maybe it was disgust, but I
Yeah.
said, we have to change this industry. And we were the very first, if you don't know, nobody had kiosks. We were the first. We were the first to have scrolling results. We were the first to have an app on your phone. We were the
Mm-hmm.
first to send text messages to your family to say, you just finished a race. We were the first to have photo systems that captured your photos at the
Mm-hmm.
finish line. And my entire passion, including to this day, is to say, how can we make it better so that somebody who's never going to do the Olympics, they weren't a college All-American, they're just a guy or a housewife or somebody with a disability even. How do we make it so that they can feel like that 5K was their Olympic experience? And that's
Mm-hmm.
what drives my company. All my engineers, all the marketing people, everybody that works here knows me obviously quite well, and they know we're going to invent something to change the world. That's how we feel about it. It's not just a
Great.
business. So
That's
that's
great.
the innovation drive. I don't know if I answered your question. I hope I did.
No, you did. I was also hoping you can touch on like, okay, someone got a chip to run. Like, how does the whole magical experience that you
Ah,
create with the RFID technology, maybe you can,
yeah,
illustrate a little bit. Or,
absolutely. If for us, it really starts at packet pickup. You pick
okay.
up your bib, and when
Mm-hmm.
you go over to do the chip check with the bib, we're going to read the chip, and then we're going to tell you on screen, step next door, uh, 10 feet away, and take a photo of yourself. So we
Mm-hmm.
have a software product that allows you to do your own selfies. And it's a nice camera, high resolution camera. It's a screen that says, um, type in your bib number that you just picked up, and then
Yep.
you've got 10 seconds to pose, and you can take as many photos as you want. It
Mm-hmm.
begins there. Uh, why are we taking those photos? Well, we're up to some no good there, really. Number one, we're going to give those photos to the participant when the race is over, and they're going to love that, because we say, here's what you look like before, and
Uh-huh.
here's your photo at the finish line. This is what you look like after. And
Yeah. Yeah.
they laugh and they love that. But the other reason we do it is because when we take the photo of that person pre-race, we can then use that photo to find them out on the course if there's a medical emergency. We've been doing this since I started the company.
Oh, wow.
Somebody can come to us and say, and it's happened countless number of times. It just happened again 2 weeks ago at a huge race. The medical staff will come to us and say, the gentleman has had a heart attack, and we're airlifting him to a hospital. His wife and kids are on the course. Can you find them? Can you find them? If they've taken a selfie before the race, not only do we have the chip read from along the route, but now we have a photo of what they look like.
I
And we
see.
can send that photo literally to that timing point, the next timing point they're going to show up at. So we'll say, well, they've gone past split 1, 2. They're going to hit split 3 in about 16 minutes based on
Mm-hmm.
their pace. We'll send the photo out there and we'll say, we want you to look for these people. And when you see them, stop them. We've got to airlift them to a hospital. Their father's in bad shape. And so it started at packet pickup for us.
I
Then,
see.
and then the next step is on race morning is we're reading their chip. We're unique in the stuff that I invented. It's unique in that we want to read the chip 1,000 times before the race starts, because what
Mm-hmm.
that tells us is we know we have a good chip. If we're going to start a race and a chip is missing, so let's say we haven't read the chip yet. Well, there's a possibility that person's way back in the pack, so that's normal. But there's also a possibility if this is a 200-person race, we probably should have seen the chip when that person was standing around.
Yeah.
So that gives us the ability to immediately say, we have a missing chip. Let's find that person before the race starts. We will literally go on the PA system that's playing music, and we'll say, Kurt Hansen, are you in the audience? And yeah, I'm over here. Well, come over here. We're not getting a chip read on your bib. Oh yeah, I was playing around with it last night, and my kid's interested in engineering. Okay, well, he messed up the chip. We're going to replace it. So that was the next step. Today, not like in the beginning, but today we even do race day chip bib assignment right up to the race starts. And in fact, we're unique in this. Somebody can walk up 2 minutes after the 5K has already started and say, I'm sorry, I'm late. Can I still run? And our answer is absolutely. So we have an app on a phone. We will literally type their name in, assign them the bib. They can take off and run, and they get to participate. They're not held back from participating.
Oh, nice.
So the technology is there to do that. Now, when they're out on the course, the next thing we're doing is if they have our free app on the phone, we're tracking them. We're doing GPS tracking if they've allowed it.
Okay.
And so we know where they're at on the course. We tell their family, if you want to see your son at split 1, let's say it's a 10K and the first split is at maybe mile 3, we can literally say to the family, he's going to arrive there based on his current pace. He's going to arrive there at exactly this time. And we can tell that family, here's where you go to park. Here's where you can go park. And then you can walk over to the split point and you can see them. So we're tracking the athlete. Now, if the athlete doesn't want to be tracked, that's fine too. We won't know their pace until they get to split 1 and we read the chip. But once we know that, then we'll start tracking them at the next split and we'll monitor their pace. This happens all the time. I was at a race not long ago and parents walked up and said, our 14-year-old daughter is missing. We're scared to death. And I said, okay, what's going on? And they said, we can't find her. We can't find her. And she should have finished 10 minutes ago. And it was a pretty good sized race, probably about 1,500 people. And I said, well, let me look on this. I happened to be there. I said, let me look on the system. So I looked and I said, yeah, she's finished. Her pace was good and she finished. And I said, she's got to be here in the athlete village area somewhere. So we got on the PA system. We called her, and sure enough, she was hanging out with some other girlfriends and she forgot to tell her parents she was there. We could confirm instantly. And the reason is that on our systems, they all talk to each other. So split 1, split 2, split 3. Sometimes we have races that'll have 5 or 10 splits. They're all communicating to the finish line in real time, And so we know where that person is. We know what their pace is, and we're tracking them the entire way. And so all that tracking allows us to do really neat things like on our kiosk. If you go to one of our big events, you can walk up on a kiosk and you can type in the person's name or bib number, and it will literally tell you they passed split 1 22 minutes ago. They're on their way to split 2. And by the way, here's a photo of them from split 1. You can literally go to the kiosk and say, show me a photo from my family member at split 1. And it'll do that. Nobody today does this. We're the only ones in the world that do this today.
Nice.
And so the whole tracking that's going on, the chip is there so I know who you are and where you're at. But behind that is all the technology that's saying, let's publish that to the web. Let's let the families know. Let's let them go up to kiosks. Even the disc jockey that they hire to do the finish line. You've been to races. Somebody's calling your name out. So when I did Ironman races, I love to hear Mike Riley say, Kurt Hansen, you are an Ironman. It was a great feeling, especially in Kona for the World Championship. That was awesome. But isn't it neat when it's a half marathon and the family is around the finish line and they hear over the PA, Laura Johnson just passed split 1. Her pace is 8-minute miles. And her family's sitting there and they're like, oh my God, that is so cool that they know that. So the technology of the chip is what allows us to then layer on top of that all these products and services. And the secret to making that work, and I'm really honest when I tell you this, is that you can't have an average chip. Because if you start missing a lot of chip reads, the whole concept goes out the window because you can't guarantee good data. And that's why we've always invented our own chip technology here. Going back to the very first chip we ever put out, I met with the engineers, the silicon engineers that were designing the chip, and said, I know this is an off-the-shelf RFID chip that you're selling, but we want to modify, and I want to be involved in the design, and here's some things I want to do. And
Mm-hmm.
so our chips have always had this unique ability to deal with very harsh conditions, which
Oh,
is
nice.
important because it's what lets the entire infrastructure operate.
Right. Because,
Yeah.
yeah, if the chip is not up to the mark, you're missing the whole point, the whole experience for the
Yeah, the whole
runners.
experience is
Yeah.
done if we don't get you if we don't get you at the first split,
Right.
or if the app isn't doing GPS tracking correctly,
Right.
we're in trouble. And GPS is a great example. We did something really crazy there, which was we know GPS signals can be lost if you're under a lot of trees or running under a bridge. And so we did a tremendous amount of development, partnered with Apple on this, and we wanted to look at how we could use accelerometers
Mm-hmm.
inside the phone to estimate your position if we lost GPS.
Mm-hmm.
It's remarkable. We're generally within about 10 to 15 feet when we pick up the GPS signal again. We're right back to where we should be. And so,
Oh,
even
great.
that, I mean, something as minor as that, we put a
Mm-hmm.
tremendous amount of engineering into that to figure that out.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I remember a use case card. I think you'll be really happy. I'm not sure, or the family. So I know a friend, which I talked to another podcast of mine. He's coming to run Boston next week. So he
Oh,
has a teenage son who grew up seeing him running. So he's the kind of the cheer squad. So basically he goes, miles after, on a bike or run to cheer his daddy up. So he
oh,
has the app. He can know actually where my daddy would be in that split in so much time because of the pace. He can
right.
just go however he wants to. But I mean, a lot of kids or a lot of family members does it. So I wish they have that app that you have of innovative timing system to track the
Well,
family members. Yeah.
we have competitors who've caught up on, well, not, I wouldn't say caught up, but they've
Yeah. Yeah.
implemented GPS tracking. Um, it's kind of interesting. We joke around here that we invent everything so that everybody else can copy us. And
Hmm.
it is true. I mean, there are probably 4 or 5 companies that make apps now that'll do the GPS tracking. What they don't do, and this is where it's unique for us, is it's not integrated into the entire timing architecture.
Right.
That's what's different. In fact, on our app, you won't know this, but let's say you were doing Kona, you were doing Ironman. Now, they don't use our platform, unfortunately. I wish they did. But if you were doing an Ironman, like when I did Kona, when you run on Alihi Drive and you see this beautiful inlet with the ocean, with our app, you can literally stop running, take a picture of yourself in the app, and we'll report the GPS position. We'll publish that photo to your Facebook page and all your friends instantly. We'll
Oh,
literally
wow.
say, Kurt's out on Alihi Drive. He stopped for a second, take a photo. And now everybody in your world who's a Facebook friend knows, hey, that's cool. He's on the course. So it's little things like that that we still do that we don't see anybody else doing today.
Oh,
Hard.
great.
It's hard.
No, thank you for sharing. And I think I happened to watch your whole demo of the system that you put
Yeah.
up on the website too. So I'll share in my, show notes too, but it's like an hour-long demo. You go really in depth
Right.
for, people who really want to understand the system, how it works. But thanks for giving the high-level overview of how you create this magical experience for the runners, the family members who were involved in the race as well. Um, Another area I was curious to understand, like you said, you travel around the world,
Mm.
different races that, innovative timing systems are helping to organize those races or, helping those. Can you share us kind of the scale of innovative timing system? You're one of the leading timing companies in the world. So there are a lot of customers. What scale you operate? Can you share some
Yeah.
insights
I
there?
mean, today we're approaching 700 offices now. And an
Okay.
office for us it's a little bit like a franchise. We don't charge a royalty like most franchises would. But we basically provide the equipment to that office. We do all their training. They have a regional leader that oversees them for a while to make sure they're doing okay. And of course, they're buying all their supplies from us, the chips and bibs and things that they need. And so it's interesting that when you're that size, you have to have training programs in place. You have to have technical support systems in place. You have to build, if you're going to grow that big, you have to have really remarkable infrastructure behind the scenes, because
Absolutely.
on a given Saturday around the world, we might have 350, 400 races going simultaneously, maybe
Mm-hmm.
more. So we have a network operations center here at our headquarters that have these huge television screens on the wall. It looks like NASA, and we have engineers that are sitting there watching all of these events. And the way that works is the systems can literally send us messages about anything that's going on. If they have an internet connection at that race, our systems will literally email and say, one of the antennas is not performing as well as it should. We can run diagnostics while the race is going on. And the timer, the guy running the system out there, he doesn't even know we're doing it. We'll literally troubleshoot it. And if we see a problem, we'll send him a pop-up message that says, it's headquarters. You have a little situation developing. We want you to replace the cable on that antenna during the race. I mean, literally during the race.
Mm-hmm.
So the scale of this thing has grown to be so big that we have to make sure that we can support that scale. And so we have 12 regional leaders in the North America. We have 12 regional leaders, and then overseas we have regional leaders there, and they help us with training, technical support, things like that. Now, what's interesting is that in a normal year, non-COVID year, when COVID happened, everything shut down. But this year is a good example. We'll do about 18,000 races around the
Oh,
world
wow.
this year. 18,000. It's a lot.
It
And
is.
some of our offices are doing 4 or 5 events a year. That's it. And some of the big ones, like our office in Texas, he's probably going to do 250 to 300 events this year. It's a lot. And so it varies based on office, but the total scale is we'll do races this year probably in around and it's a guess, probably around 70, 80 countries,
Oh,
maybe
wow.
more,
Mm-hmm.
maybe more. Sometimes our great example is Singapore. So you have Singapore and Malaysia, which are basically next door to each other, right? I mean, it's over
Right.
a bridge. So I count Singapore and Malaysia essentially as one territory, but in reality, it's 2 countries.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's situations like that. In Europe, as you well know, in Europe, our timer in Liechtenstein, he goes and he times races in other countries around him. And
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know what the real fingerprint or footprint, I should say, is, but it's probably 80, 90 countries,
I see.
18,000 events a year. It's a lot. I mean, it's amazing. When I'm in here on Saturdays, which is almost every Saturday, if I walk into the network operations center and I look up at the screens, I'm astonished. I think to myself, 15 years ago, I was in my house. And today I'm watching races going on in, the South Pacific and all over Europe, even in the Middle East. We have a huge contingency in the Middle East. A lot of the countries there use our products as well. So it's kind of neat to see the board light up. There are maps up there that light up and show what's going on around the world.
Is it like a command center you
It
set
is.
up?
It's
Like you can
it's a
see what's
it's a
going on?
command center, and that's
Okay.
the other thing I love about our company is that tech support for us, for our customers, isn't, it's not an answering machine. It's not an afterthought. And this is one of the things that drives me crazy in this industry is that we have 5 engineers whose total goal in life is to provide technical support. It's all they do. And our systems are designed in real time to alert us here in St. Louis anytime, 24 hours a day, if there's a problem.
Huh.
We're
Okay.
not open at 11 o'clock at night. It's not normal for us. But if we get an alert, I noticed this the other night, actually, we had an event going on in Ireland, and the guy there that runs the office we have actually 3 offices in Ireland, but the one guy was having a bit of a problem. And the alert came in on Saturday. It came in for us at about 2 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I when an alert comes in and it's a high level alert, my phone goes off. And even if I'm sleeping, I grab my phone, I look at it. So I said, well, I'm going to get up, and because nobody's going to respond at 2 in the morning. Well, one of my other engineers here, tech support engineer, had already responded. He had already from his home, he had woken up. He took remote control of the system in Ireland and figured out what they had done wrong, fixed it, and the race just kept going. And so typically I get an email from somebody that says, oh my God, I mean, it's 2 a.m. for you guys. Do you never sleep? And well, not if the phone goes off. So it's pretty amazing how we can support people all over the world. Now we do have a operation in London, and we can support races from London as well. But
Mhm.
it just so happened that at that office, the staff there were at another race, so they couldn't help the gentleman in Ireland at that time, and that's why the U.S. kicks in and takes over.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great. And I think if I read your the website card, this is one of your key competitive advantage, right? The support that you provide to your customers,
Yeah,
like
nobody,
unparalleled. Yeah.
nobody in the world in this industry, I mean, they just don't build in systems to track every single thing that's going on.
Hmm.
They don't, they just don't have the infrastructure that we have uh, to provide that level of support. I mean, it goes beyond that. We do training. We have an online training university that people go through to get certified. We have um, webinars that happen every single month. We have 2 webinars,
Okay.
and one of them is a training class, and the other one we call it Uncle Kurt's Fireside Chats. It's named after the famous fireside chats from Theodore Roosevelt,
Uh-huh.
and it's an open mic, and anybody around the world can check in and say, "Hey, I have a question, Kurt." So, as a CEO and also the guy who invented a lot of the technology, I make myself available to any question anybody can ask anywhere around the world. I do that every single month. The
That's
other
great.
rule we have is you can call me every night. I'm here till usually 9 o'clock every night, because I love what I do. I don't consider it work. And so if somebody will literally call me on my desk phone here, the extension is published, it's 111. And I don't have an admin. I don't have somebody screening my calls. I refuse to do that. I don't want that. I want, if somebody needs to reach me, they can get to me. And then the other thing we do, and it's a rule of our company, is we do not go home until every single email or phone call that came in that day has been responded to. It doesn't mean that we have a solution. So if something electronically breaks in somebody's product, which is pretty rare, but if it happens, we'll let them know. We're going to tomorrow, we're going to have our customer services team ship it back overnight to us, and we're going to
Hmm.
send you a loaner
Hmm.
while your system's back here being repaired. Um, so it may take until the next day to get everything wrapped up, but we don't go home at night
Right.
until every single person has been addressed. And we're legendary for our technical support. People are just shocked that, in fact, it scares them because sometimes I'll actually call
Right.
if we're backed up on some support, or if somebody's out sick. Last week we had one of our guys had COVID and he was out sick, and so I called the customer, and they were terrified. I said, "Hi, it's Kurt calling." They go, "Oh my God, why are you calling? Am I being fired? What's going on?" Calm down. We're just we're just a little backed up, and I thought I'd call you. And then they're like, "Well, that's a big deal." It really isn't. I'm just like anybody else, but to them, it's a pretty big deal when I call.
It is, getting the call from the CEO to respond to their questions. Yeah, I'm sure people would be scared and surprised at the same time,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. Now,
By the way, that was a great question about tech support. I've never had that asked of me. And I'm surprised that nobody does, because buying a timing system, and I tell people this all the time, buying a timing system is the easy part. You can buy anybody's timing system. When you get it, people think timing is easy. It's not. There are a lot of things you have to learn. There's subtle nuances, there's
mhm,
technical challenges. And what really differentiates a company isn't the sale, it's the after the sale support.
yeah,
That's why we are so big and we've grown so well, is because
yeah,
you're not going to buy our system and not have your hand held. That's for sure.
yeah. And also, if you get that level of support, you build that loyalty, or you will use it next time or the
Right.
time after, right? But if you say that, hey, there is nobody to help me, you may think twice, like your
Right.
friend did in the first time he got the bought the 40,000 kit, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you something from a business standpoint. Now I'll put on my business hat. One of the things we measure is turnover rate. How many of our timers
Mm,
leave every year?
okay.
And we're very concerned. We always want to know what that rate looks like. And for us, we've had almost, we're at 698 offices right now. So we're close to 700. Of our, in the last, oh gosh, 17, 18 years now, I guess we've been doing this. We've lost about 25 to 30 of our timers, 25 to 30. That is an attrition rate that's unbelievable. But what's interesting is then you have to dive into that and you have to ask, which we do,
Mm-hmm.
why did those 30 people, let's say 30, why did those 30 people leave? Well, 10 of them left because they thought they were going to get better technology somewhere else. Okay, fair enough. That's
Mm-hmm.
their call, and they think that's a better choice for them. I respect that they decided to do that.
Mm-hmm.
The other 20, roughly 20, 3 of those people died, unfortunately. They had heart attacks and died, so their business was done. Most of them, though, retired. They just said, I'm 65 or 70 years old. I'm too tired to get up in the mornings and go out and time races. It's a lot of work. And they just retired. They got out of the business. So when we look back, we know that there's probably 10, it might be 10 or 12, but it's close. People who basically said, I give up on ITS for whatever reason, I'm going to go elsewhere. That's sort of, that low number is so unheard of in our industry. It's
Is it?
just,
Okay.
and people jokingly who don't like us say it's the cult of Kurt. They think we're
Okay.
some sort of a cult that people join and they can't get out of. It's not true. But if you're being well cared for and we love you and we take care of you and we support you,
Mhm.
why would you leave? You generally don't. You're just not going to leave. Yeah.
So usually is that one office supporting one timer, or you can have
It,
multiple
it
timers?
is the timer who's running the office.
Is
When
it?
we say
Okay.
office, I don't mean physically in a strip mall, there's a building, although that's true. We have timers who are so large that they have their own buildings,
Hmm.
but most of them work from their home. And that's their office. That's what we call an office.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So in terms of real brick and mortar where we have offices, let me think about that. We have one, two, three. I count them all. Three. Yeah, 3 offices other than our head. Well, actually 4. London. We have 4 offices outside of the headquarters here at St. Louis. So we have an office in Chicago. We have an office in Ocean City, Maryland. We have an office in London, and I'm leaving somebody out. Who did I leave? Oh, an office in Silicon Valley. Yeah.
I see.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, great. Now, changing the gear a little bit, Kurt, where do you see the industry heading, like looking into the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. 2 years ago at our conference, we do an annual conference and it's a big event.
Hmm.
I stood up on stage and I said, we are, to quote the Michael Porter 5 forces model at
Hmm.
Harvard University that
Yeah,
Michael teaches. I said, we are entering a phase here where substitution is, the possibility of substitution is great. The competitive pressures are enormous, and we're going to see a fallout in our industry. We're going to see companies changing ownership, meaning my competitors. We're
hmm,
going to see companies selling out. It is really hard to make money in the timing industry. And a perfect example of that, and I have the utmost respect for the gentleman who runs it, but is MyLabs. MyLabs, Camille, who runs MyLabs, is a brilliant CEO. He's fairly new to the company. They've gone through a number of CEOs, but he's not an engineer. He's not a technician. He's a runner and he loves the industry, but this is a very high tech business. You have to really be a strong technician, I
hmm.
believe. Now, he would argue otherwise, respectfully so, and he may be right. Maybe I'm biased. I'm sure I am. But MyLabs was owned by a venture capital firm, and it was sold to another venture capital firm. Okay, venture capital firms um, only sell if they can make a substantial profit. And in this particular case, I don't think they did. I think if you look at Chronotrack is owned by Lifetime Fitness, and Lifetime has poured a lot of money into them. Have they received a really great return on that? I doubt it. I doubt it. It's a hard business to be in because there's so many different pressures and forces coming at you. And the consolidation is clearly underway. We're seeing companies buying up other companies
Mm-hmm.
By the way, we are the only company that's privately owned. My wife and I own the entire company, and there is no venture capital. There is no other owner. We're it, and we're the last. Every single one of the big competitors, which would be MyLapse, ChronoTrack, and Race Result, these are
Mm-hmm.
all companies that are backed by VCs or backed by other means, but we're not. And I haven't sold out, even though there's a lot of pressure. We get a lot of phone calls to sell a company, and we don't. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason we don't is because we love what we do, and we believe that selling out doesn't buy us anything. We have cash, we don't need money,
Mm-hmm.
and we want to preserve the level of support we have. And I think somebody who bought us would probably say you're spending too much on support, which I'm not going to cut back on. Our R&D, by the way, represents 40% of our revenue here. We spend
Awesome.
40% on. If you know a lot about business, most companies, Microsoft's a good one, they'll spend 18 to 20%, and that's considered ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Tech industry, we spend 40% of our money goes back into R&D here.
Oh, wow.
And that's because we're so committed. Somebody buying us wouldn't do that. So there's a consolidation absolutely underway, and we've seen companies come and go. There'll be more that'll start up. Masha, which is a company out of Spain, they disappeared. They came out really strong and said, we're going to dominate the world. And I said, well, good luck. It's too late. It's too late for a startup to come into this industry. We're a very mature industry now. It's too late to come in as a startup. If you're not already here, you're not going to crush MyLapse and ChronoTrack and Race Result or us. It's just too late. And so the industry is changing. There's been a rumor for a long time that a GPS chip on the bib would wipe out timing companies. And it's never going to happen. And the reason is we are the world leader in GPS tracking technology for sports events. We are deep into it, and we can't do it at a competitive price. Even if I produce 10 million chips for bibs that were GPS based, the cost is just too high. There's a lot of cost pressure on our industry. So I think what you're gonna see happen is you'll see a little bit more consolidation.
Mm-hmm.
I think there'll be I think the four of us big guys will probably remain where we're at, principally because the other three are owned by VCs and they're not going to sell it. In fact, they couldn't sell it. You couldn't sell MyLapse today, or ChronoTrack probably, to most other companies because the asking price, based on what's been invested to build that business, the asking price would be just too high.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough return on that investment. And so I think the four of us will be around. MyLapse is a great company. They'll be around. Race Results a great company. They'll be around. ChronoTrack is an okay company, but they'll be around. They're not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And what'll happen is the small guys that'll come in will either be bought quickly or they'll be wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
So they won't be able to sustain themselves. So we'll get down to four companies. The threat of, there'll be some new technology. Well, there is a company that started up that said Bluetooth. We're going to do timing with Bluetooth, and we're going to read the phone as it comes by the finish line. When
Mm-hmm.
they made that announcement, that press announcement, I met with our engineers and we just busted out laughing because we know what it takes to create a Bluetooth connection to a phone. It takes about a quarter of a second.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to time a race with 30 people and you're going to ask them to spread out at the finish line, you can probably do it. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
going to try to time a race with 1,000 people coming across the starting line, you couldn't create the Bluetooth connections. Well, that company that bragged that they were going to take the top four down, they're out of business. They're gone because
I see.
they quickly realized it's not going to happen. So I think there'll be a battle royale of the four of us. I don't know who will win. I think it'll be us, but maybe we'll lose. I don't know. But the four of us are fighting to. I think we're fighting to grow in an industry that's fairly saturated right now in the U.S. Now, for
Mm-hmm.
us, our big growth is not in the U.S. It's overseas. We have
I see.
big operations going on in India
Hmm.
and parts of Asia and even China. We're in China now, and we see tremendous opportunities for growth outside the U.S. North America
I
is
see.
pretty saturated right now.
Right, right. Oh, great. Thanks for sharing. I think I had an amazing chat with you, Kurt, and thank you for your time. I really appreciate you being generous, sharing the story, the industry where it is heading, and some stories about Jaguar system and the innovative timing system as well. So thank you.
You're welcome. And I will say in closing that I admire you because I do a lot of interviews, and most of the time the interviewer hasn't done the research.
Mhm.
And the fact that I can tell you did your homework and you were really well prepared. And so my compliments to you. You did a great job. Great job.
Thank you, Kurt. Really appreciate it.